welcome to this week's Facebook Live. I'm going to talk about your to-do list or task list or whatever you call it yourself. It's all those things we do every day, be it for ourselves, for work. Usually if you're very busy and stressed, you tend to have taken on more than than you should. That old saying, if you want something done, ask a busy person. Well, the same is true for people that are stressed. We tend to be taking on too much. So, if you're stressed and are very anxious and you feel very overwhelmed, then I'd suggest that you do have a chance to review your to-do list. It's not a rush, okay? It'll take you a little time to set this one up because you're probably not actually acknowledging everything you actually do in a day or over the course of a week. So it might take you a little time to sit down and write down that to-do list, the real to-do list, not just the few bits that you have in your diary or on your on your mobile, on the calendar, on your mobile, or whatever. There'll be a lot more you're doing there. So when we're stressed, we go, okay, I need to make some changes, and we do that. But if we don't cut back on this to-do list, then we're not going to be able to reduce the stress. It's simple as that, the overwhelm, wherever you find yourself, that it's like, no, I have too much going on. So the quickest way to reduce the stress, to reestablish the healthy boundaries, because when we have an overloaded to-do list, we tend not to have healthy boundaries as well, is to have, a good old clearing of the decks. And to keep doing it, because it's not a one and done and dusted job. This isn't. This is something you would review, I would suggest, at the end of every week, and then at the end of every month in particular. And then as you get a bit better at it, you probably do it monthly, and every 3 months maximum I would be reviewing, because things have a tendency to creep back in. So if you want, lasting change and better mental and physical health in your life, then you really need to have a look at, your to-do list. Now, in order to help you do this, it's journal time. So either get out a journal if you have one, or get out a piece of paper. I'm going to give you some questions that you might like to ask yourself. They're all in the blog. Go have a look at it. You don't have to write them down from watching the video. So you can go and the link is in the description. Go have a look at it. Because we won't change anything unless we fully acknowledge it. And as I said, as always, I always say, raise your awareness about everything that you're doing and for whom. So you really need to be writing down all those phone calls, all the interruptions you get, all the emails, all the appointments, your shopping, what delays you, is there somebody that always waylays you, chores that you do, tasks and work, etc., etc. You really do need to make a complete list here of everything that is taking up your time with regards to work, home. Maybe you're also doing college. I know at one stage I was doing, college and raising my kids and trying to work. It was crazy. It's a crazy time. So you might have college as well. Family, friends are looking for your time. Other people, further out than family and close friends. Maybe your health, there's something wrong there, you need to look at that. Your finances, maybe you're worrying an awful lot about that. So there's an awful lot of things that maybe, is going on up here even that aren't, and you're spending time worrying about it, but you're not actually realizing how much you're spending on it. So once you have that complete to-do list, as I said, get out the journal and we're going to start looking at the questions. So with the journal then, you want to look at each area of your life. As I said, work, home, finances, health, anything at all, friends, family, maybe 2 different categories there, the neighbours, if there's somebody bothering you, whatever it is, have a look at it, but have a look and see, what is already on the to-do list. What are you actually doing? You really do need to spend a little bit of time tracking it. And then ask yourself, some of the following questions around the different tasks. So why is that task really there? I know that can sound like a really strange question to ask yourself, but like, why do you have it? Why is it your task? And do you really need to do it? Like, do you really need to do it? You've got to ask yourself, do I really need to do that? So are you able to delete anything immediately? Is there something that springs to mind? For instance, maybe it's something you'd really like to do, like a goal or something, and it's always on your to-do list. Oh yeah, I must start that, I must start that. Do yourself a favour, take it off the to-do list and put it in what we call a parking lot. And when it comes to doing, your review for the year, or when you decide you're going to do a new goal, then look at it seriously and say, is this goal for me? Is it really about me, or is it somebody else's goal? I've done a whole video on goal setting, so go have a look at that and really questioning why you might have that there. But for the meantime, put it in the parking lot. You're not going to get to it today, this week, or even in the next few months maybe, so put it in the parking lot. So that way you can delete it off your list immediately. It's not on your to-do list. It's not sitting there in the back of your mind keeping you up at night. If you're not able to do it, if you're not able to take it off your to-do list, and you can't delete it, really be honest with yourself and say, why am I unable to delete this task? Why is it all down to me to do this? Now, if you're looking at a job, if you're finding that to-do list is ever increasing, I've talked about this before, look at toxic workplaces, see what's going on in work for you. Has your job increased so much that it's actually now 2 jobs or a job and a half? You might need to bring that up at your review, that the job has become so big that you need to look at it. And if you have such a toxic boss, then maybe look at getting a different job and reducing some of your own pressure. I've talked about toxic workplaces and how to leave them safely before. So do check that video out as well if that's something that's a problem there for you. But again, you have to ask yourself, if this is to do with family, friends, or other people, or anything outside of a work-related issue, why aren't you able to delete it? Why aren't you able to do that? Why can't you let it go? And going on further with this, then you'd break it down a bit more. So if you can't delete it, now can you delegate it? Is there somebody else you can ask for help and say, I can't do this, could you take this on for me? Could you make that phone call instead of me? Could you do whatever it is instead of me? So are you willing to let it go to another person? Are you willing to be able to delegate it, or can you delegate it? Again, you've got to be asking yourself, why can't I delegate it to somebody else? Why can't I give it away? Why can't I, trust them to do the same job that I would do with this task? And again, you'd have to look at why you're doing that, your own thinking around that, and why you're not able to let go of it. Again, if this isn't really your job, if this is really somebody else's tasks in work or at home, or with family or friends or anything like that, can you hand the task back to them? Because they're an adult and they're the ones that are really responsible for doing this. It's their life. They're an adult. You should be treating them with respect. Can you give them back the task? Can you start roping them in if it's about caring for an elderly relative? That can be a hard conversation to have if it's all been left to just one person in the family. And that takes an awful lot of courage, to have a conversation like that. But if it's about the other person and it really is their responsibility and not yours, again, you have to be courageous and hand back the task to that person, because right now your mental and physical health needs you to do that. And if you're not able to do that, if you're not able to, hand back the task, again, it always comes down to, what's the payoff for you? Why are you holding on to this? If you can't delete it, if you can't delegate it, if you can't hand it back to the person that's really responsible, I would ask you to be at least, look at yourself and be honest and say, what am I getting from this for keeping this task on? What am I getting out of it? And then you could ask questions about, Can you ask for help? Can you ask for help when you need it? If you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed. If you can't, then again, you have to ask yourself, why don't I deserve to ask for help? What purpose is the task serving if I keep it on? And again, if this goes back to responsibility, who's responsible for it really? If it's in work or in college or at home, then do you need help with it? If the task isn't really yours and you've been left to do it, is somebody else responsible for it? Why aren't you allowing them to take on that responsibility or face up to the consequences if they don't want it, the responsibility? And why aren't you holding them accountable for not taking on that responsibility? Again, difficult. Sometimes that's very difficult situations that can be involved there, and it does take courage to even talk about it with yourself, and journal about it. Again, though, there's a payoff there for continuing to do the task. I would want to look at that, and always, if you're finding any of these questions really difficult, I would say to you, you really need to reach out and talk to a professional, a local therapist in your area. Another thing we kind of forget to think about here is being busy, because stressed and overwhelmed people tend to be very busy people. But why are you busy? Because sometimes being busy is not always good for us or our mental health. Sometimes we keep ourselves busy, and that's a payoff. We keep ourselves busy and we suffer from stress or overwhelm, our mental health or physical health starts to suffer. But why are we keeping ourselves busy in the first place? Are we avoiding something or someone? And sometimes that can be a very hard thing to admit to ourselves and to realise and acknowledge that, yeah, I've been keeping myself busy because I'm avoiding something. Maybe it's something within ourselves, maybe it's something external to us, it could be somebody else or some situation that's going on, and we're keeping ourselves a bit busy avoiding it. But again, you've got to look at these things. These are things that can come up for you. So, what I would do is, if you're honest enough and you can go over those questions, then go back over them once you've written them down. Because if you go back over them, it kind of gives you a hint as to where your negative thinking, how it's faring as you answer them. So, is it bringing up any negative beliefs, any negative core beliefs for you? Is it thoughts of guilt, etc. coming up there? Is it codependency, perfectionism, etc.? Or any of those kind of traits coming out for you? You have to look at those. And people don't want to. That's one of the reasons people don't want to look at the to-do list, the task list, because sometimes it's not all sunshine and roses. It can seem like a very simple exercise to do on paper, but when you actually sit down to do it and ask yourself some very hard questions, sometimes we mightn't like the answers we're getting back from ourselves, because remember, this is just you're just answering it at the moment. And sometimes we can find out, as I said, we're trying to avoid something. Maybe we're trying to avoid the conversation we need to have with somebody that we're close to. Avoidance is one of the things that stressed people can have in common. And is this happening for you? Is this happening for you? At least be honest with yourself. The whole idea behind this review of your priorities or to-do list or task list is to actually reduce it and reduce your stress at the same time, and then free up some space for you to be able to look after yourself, manage your stress levels more proactively, take some time for things that are, will help you with your mental and physical health, time to spend on things that are important for you, with people that are important for you, your positive supporters. But again, it's not a one-off one and done dusted thing. We have to keep an eye on it, because if we don't keep an eye on it, there's a gap when we delete something or delegate it or hand back a responsibility. It leaves a vacuum there, and if we don't start putting in things that are more proactive for our mental and physical health, other people and other things that aren't so good for us will seep into the cracks. And so it's a good idea, as I said at the start, to review this at least every week. I'd advise you to do it every week at the start, and then you can slip it out to a month, and then 3 months maximum, and do a kind of 12-week planner, if you want to keep your stress levels down. I've also talked about doing a full review of all the areas, and I've talked about a lot of questions in that one. That's a mid-year review, but mid-year reviews can be done at the beginning of the year, any time in the year. You can do a big review. You might find that helpful if you're feeling like things have gotten too much and I really need to start looking at different areas of my life. Don't take on them all at once. Don't change everything all at once. It won't work. Slowly, change a little bit at a time. If you are feeling extremely stressed by what's going on in your life, if you're extremely overwhelmed by what's going on in your life, please reach out and get the support of a local therapist. They will be able to help you while you do this work. And they will be able to, if you have some difficult conversations that you need to have with people, they will be able to support you and work with you right up into the run up to the conversation, and after the conversation then you'll have the support of those therapists afterwards, so they'll be able to help you, and that's vital because you need that support. So again, I'm going to leave it there for this week. I hope this helps. As always, if you need me to answer any of your questions, I'm happy to do so. I will talk to you all again next week. Thank you for listening.